All right, welcome to Healthy, Fit, and Pain Free Pittsburgh. I'm your host, Ryan Wade, here with Dr. Tyler Bordick. Of course, today we wanted to dive into the topic of why we're all kind of our own worst enemy in our health and why we tend to self-sabotage and just where does that come from? I think we have an understanding, at least Dr. Tyler and I do, of, this is something that everybody struggles with. If you're struggling with it right now, self-sabotaging your health is not something that is a you problem. It is an everybody problem. And I think if we just aim to get a better understanding of why we do the things that we do and where kind of these thoughts come from, we can get ahead and be a little proactive. I know on the last podcast we talked about the proactive nature of health and why that's so important. But Doc, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. It's been a good week. It's been a good week. Beautiful day out there of November.
Beautiful day in November. It's about 75 degrees. It's wonderful. But let's just dive right into it. I think the first thing that I think about whenever I think about people self-sabotaging is this champion. I call it like a championship mindset or a champion's mindset, and it's the fact that people will think that their health is like this. It has this like finite end to it. Right? And maybe it's different in the PT world and dealing with injury, but...
Nope.
Fair enough. All right. Fair enough. But, I think it comes from this champion mindset. What I mean by the championship mindset is basically like, there are so many athletes out there in the world, right? And they're all aiming to be the gold medalist, the champion,
to
right?
win the day.
Right? But the fact of the matter is that even most champions, they lose 20% of their matchups, right? And so if we look at it, but people think they need to go undefeated in their health. They need to do everything perfectly, is what I'm trying to get at, right? And whenever we try to do everything perfectly, what do? We don't do everything perfectly. No. Right? So, let's start off by, instead of just aiming, I think the easiest place to go is obviously the diet. That part and the eating. It's like, well, I got to cut out carbs and I got to drink a gallon and a half of water and I can only eat so many grams of protein and no sugar, right? No alcohol, please, right? I think we were just talking to a friend of ours who was like, I'm only going to eat chicken and rice for like the first 3 months of the year. We both kind of just laughed.
Shout out to Rob.
The guy was, good. Thanks for the fodder, Rob. But the fact of the matter is that, most champions lose a minimum of about 20% of their matchups. And so when we look at what greatness kind of is, if you look at it an athletic example of greatness, right, why don't we take that same mentality to our health of, well, it's okay to lose about 20-25% of the time? Why do you think that is?
So, I really, anymore if you look around, like everything's kind of this do or die mentality. It's like you got to wake up, you got to win the day all day. If you lose, a lot of times, like we're just afraid of failure, right? Like, we go to school and if we get an F on a test, we failed. If we get an F in the class, we failed. And there's really no quote unquote win to that. And I think a lot of times that's what happens whenever we try to diet or whenever we try to improve our fitness, get smarter. Ryan is standing on a chair right now.
I can't reach the microphone unless I stand on the chair.
But that gets in our mind that like we have to win every day, because if not, like it's failure. And the same thing with losing weight. And I say this out of my own mistakes. There used to be a time where if I weighed myself in every week and I didn't drop at least 1 pound, I just look back and I lost that week. Like that could have been a week that I had more to drink, or I could have ate more carbs, or I could have cheated more on my diet. But I could have
treated myself better.
Yes,
is what you're trying to say.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And I think that's right there is the linchpin that we run into, is that we should treat ourselves better. We should have a little bit more grace with ourselves when it comes to this journey, because that's what it is. It's a journey. And you're going to have those wins and losses, but that creates a team in the end. So what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we are looking at the terms of treating ourselves better, I think most of the time we think that just because it's healthier, right, or it feels healthier, which very much part of the time can be more restrictive, right? That it's actually, we need to get a better definition of what treating ourselves better really looks like, and I think that when we have this mentality, this championship mentality of we have to do everything perfectly, we treat ourselves like absolute dog shit.
Correct.
In our brain, right? In our mind, and where we believe your performance and your continuation of health really starts is how much self-belief do you have? How much consistency can you build? And it all starts with how much grace can you have with yourself? How happy can you make yourself without having the ultimate goal of what you're trying to accomplish, right? Because I'm sure we've all read the self-help book that's like, so you're going to be happy when you get the money. You're going to be happy when you lose the weight. You're going to be happy when you buy the house. You're going to be happy when you get the job. But what about now?
Yep. Right?
What about now? Isn't the point of life to be happy and to have it worth living? And so when we're looking at health, we can really stop ourselves in our tracks by having this mindset. And I think, it would really benefit anybody who's listening to, before you, or maybe you're in process of your health journey, maybe you're just getting started, maybe you're restarting. That's okay, right? But maybe we should start and think about, okay, how can I treat my mind better before I start this process? How can I focus on being happy during the process? Because we're probably going to see a lot better results if we can enjoy and be happy and not have to rely on an objective or a subjective outcome. Subjective, sorry.
Yeah.
To be able to give us happiness, right? Because I think a lot of the times we think about losing weight, but it's like, well, why did I start wanting to lose weight? Because I was unhappy, right? So I was unhappy being heavy. That doesn't mean you can't be happy being heavy, right? But maybe if you adopted happiness, it would help you do take the actions and eat better and exercise more consistently and give yourself credit for that just along the process. What do you think?
Well, I think too, a lot of the times it comes down to expectations. We always start off these false expectations. Like for instance, most people get inspired. A lot of people get inspired to lose weight by, they see this magazine article, they see someone on a website, or they go to the beach and they see someone there, and they automatically think like, they get this expectation that's what you're supposed to look like. Well, I can tell you, at one point I was 4% body fat, chiseled to the gills, and I was not happy. Like I was not a happy person, and you automatically assume that. And, and these expectations are always too, that it's going to be a straight and narrow, path to success, which we both know doesn't happen. I couldn't tell you, we've had so many members here. For instance, I have one person I'm working with right now online who she stalled out and she was starting to get a little bit discouraged. She thought, we're running into a little bit of trouble now. And we just looked at her life. We're like, let's just keep going through. We're kind of in a little bit of a crunch right now because of schedule. And eventually she broke through that and she started to lose that weight again. Or she started to get stronger. We have another member here who, she wasn't really seeing a lot of weight loss at first, and that started to kind of discourage her a little bit. However, her golf game was going up, her bowling game was going up. She's doing great outside of here, and she's kept on it. And then the other day she comes in and she lost 12 pounds. And if you go off that expectation that you're supposed to lose this amount every week, that you're supposed to look this certain way by this arbitrary of 3 months that you're doing this. Well, that's really where the disappointment's going to come, and that's, we're looking at the wrong things here.
There's always a stat that kind of sticks out in my mind, and that is stress can delay healing by up to 60%. Now, I don't know the source off the top of my head, but that's an actual real data number taken from a very very reputable source, right? I have it in my notes, but not in front of me. But I think when we talk about healing, right, in a injury rehabilitation world, it's easy to understand healing, right? It's easy to understand. I feel pain. I do not feel pain. I am injured and don't have function. I am better and have more function, right? But when we're talking about weight loss, is healing not the ability to do things more consistently? Is healing not the ability to lose weight at the rate that your body will allow?
Yeah.
Now, if we are under more stress and we are delaying healing, I'm basically saying that our body is going to not play the game with us correctly, and it's going to take longer for us to lose the weight, right? The whole cortisol response, and it's just going to put the brakes on our weight loss, right? And I think a lot of times people don't recognize that. They think it's like this linear path, even though everybody knows success is not linear. But when we take into account the thing, just like the themes that we've just started off this podcast with: happiness, stress, consistency, process, right?
Yeah.
All of this is coming together, and I think it's something that we need to start to look at and say, well, this is something we need to wrap our head around before we start diving into working out 5 days a week, eating, putting ourselves in ketosis, and restricting our lifestyle, because that isn't happiness. No. Right? Anybody, you like you said, you did a physique show. You were 4% body fat, right? And you weren't happy. Yeah. Right? And you certainly weren't healthy. Yeah. No. Right? No. And I was a wrestler, and I had to lose, I've lost upwards of 40 pounds in 7 days, right? Like, not healthy, not happy. Okay? But we were doing those for performance reasons, and I think that's another part of this, is that a lot of people kind of take their youth with them as they go, and they think they have to treat their health as an athlete would, which plays back into the championship mindset.
So why do you think people aren't as happy? So what are your thoughts?
I think it's a culmination of it. I hate using the word refusal, but we started talking about it. It's a somewhat of a refusal to acknowledge just how important it is to be proactive in helping your mental health, right? It's that we think that our mind is the strongest muscle when we put the most stress on it. Yeah. So maybe it is the strongest muscle, but we sure beat the hell out of it, right? And we don't focus on its recovery. And so when we look at putting, we talk about this all the time, feeding ourselves positive content, because it helps our brain, just as feeding ourselves healthy food would nourish our body, right? When we cultivate, some great affirmations about who we want to be. And I think a lot about it is self-image. I think a lot about it is identity as well, right?
You mean the news doesn't have positive images?
No, not now. And if you're listening to this later, we're like 2 days after the 2020 presidential election. That's the farthest.
That's the farthest we're going to go with that. No, yeah, I 100% agree with you there. And, I think a big part of it too, and I always, I talk with people all the time about this, and I say the biggest reason that people don't typically stick to their fitness is because there's no draw, there's no magnetic effect to what they're doing. And many times people just want to lose weight because they feel like that's what they have to do. People do like, if you know people who do like bulk cuts, people who want to gain weight or get a little bit stronger in the winter, and then they try to cut it all off and going towards the summer, and they feel like they have to do that. And eventually they get this false perception of where they need to be, and they start doing a crash diet that they really shouldn't be, that doesn't really interest them. And that's really why people lose that happiness. People don't realize that you can do all the things. You can go out to eat. You can have a few drinks, and you can still achieve your goals, because it's funny. We almost grow up in this environment where the more pain you go through, the more of a warrior you seem like.
Yeah, you're right. And I think there's also a thing where it's like for some reason we have to put a due date on everything. Why can't this just okay, so this goes back to the self-identity point that I was talking about, right? And it's basically saying that I am starting this new healthy lifestyle because I am not a healthy person, right? And that's typically that's essentially what most people are telling themselves when they're starting to work out and eat better and to worry about their mental health and taking time to de-stress, right? Is that I'm going to be this new person, right? Yeah. Well, it's usually we got to adopt that before. You got to believe that you're the healthy person, right? And if let's say that, and just for an example, you were in that position right now, and I said, as the plane flies past, not drives past, but if you didn't consider yourself a healthy person, you had X amount of weight to lose, right? And I said, all right, well, I just want you to ask yourself every day, what would a healthy person do every day? And every time you're faced with the decision of whether you should eat the fried sandwich or something better, right? And anytime you had the thought of, well, I could skip going to my workout today, or I could, be consistent, because that's what the healthy person would do. How many times do you think you'd have to do that before you actually turn into a healthy person?
Science says 21 days, but I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either, but it's not as long as we think, and I would even go into more argumentation that if you can ask yourself that question, you're already there.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's kind of where we got to start off whenever we're looking at, okay, if I'm trying to actually make a healthy lifestyle, I need to believe that I have at least the ability to be the healthy person if I don't believe that I am the healthy person. And if you can do that, I think you actually are.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have this champion mindset, because health is it doesn't have a finish line.
Yeah.
You have one body for your life. So you either treat it well for your life or you don't.
Yeah. Or for God's sakes too, like, don't try to compensate. And I think that's the big and I say this again out of my own mistakes, is people just try to compensate. They, for instance, like if they went off their diet a little bit throughout the week, they start to really kick up their exercise to try to burn that off. And it just puts them in a bad place, and they feel like they constantly have to exercise more to burn off the excess food. Or, we were talking about earlier, like cheat meals are perfect, for instance. People say, oh, well, for a while there was this big thing, well, you eat quote-unquote clean all week, or you have a strict diet all week, and then you have a cheat meal on the weekends. Well, the problem with that is cheat meals just, again, they have such a negative connotation with them. No one wants to cheat on their spouse, so why would you think it would be okay to cheat on your diet? But the other problem, too, is this opens up a door to temptation to where, it's funny, we just went and had sushi, and like you start all you can eat sushi, and then you get in this place where you're just eating and eating and eating, and then you just go down this bad road, and then eventually you feel bad about yourself. You're like, well, that wasn't what a healthy person was supposed to do. You self-sabotage, and we come back around this full circle again where you feel like a failure. And that's not how it is. They always say it's always interesting that Michael Jordan, the amount of shots that he took that he didn't make. Because
most shots.
What's that? Or most shots, but yeah, most shots in history.
He also missed the most shots in history.
Also missed the most shots in history. And, that's you, and Wayne Gretzky says, you missed 100% of the shots you don't take. So we can use all those quotes there, but that's the thing. People just need to realize that you're going to have those moments, you're going to have those screw-ups, but honestly, that's just what makes this journey that much more beautiful, and you just have to accept it, forgive yourself, and just move forward.
Yeah, and we're going round and around on a topic that we kind of just briefly touched on in episode 0, which is the reactive and proactive nature of health, right? And it's if you're more proactive about how to treat your mind and how to treat your body on days when you don't have 100%, but you have enough grace in your soul to tell yourself that if I have 60%, I'm going to give myself 100% of 60% today, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong. Who said there's anything wrong with that, right? Who said there's nothing wrong? Like some days I just don't have 100%. That's okay, right? In the long run, if we give 100% every day, we're not going to make it, right? We're going to end up one big overuse injury, right? And it's just not going to work. And it goes, there's the saying of if you don't make time for your wellness, you're going to make time for your illness, right? And it's the same thing.
And that's when you see me. But no, I 100% agree with you with that.
Absolutely. And if you don't take the time to recognize that you're going to make mistakes, recognize that some days you're not going to have the best day. Some days you're not going to have 100% to give. Some days you're going to have more tired or extra stress. Those days you need to know, if you've taken the steps beforehand to recognize it, and you've done a little preparation, then you can know how to redefine what your health needs on that day, right? Because your health doesn't need nutrition and exercise 100% of the days. Your health really needs your recovery, right? It needs exercise and nutrition, of course, but it also needs things like relationships and positive affirmations. And it needs the ability to recover, or else we are going to break down and become sick and get hurt.
Yep.
right? And if we continue to push the issue of I need to be perfect, you won't be. And so, I think this is all very much highlighted with where we've been in 2020, which is sitting at home, right? Becoming increasingly frustrated with not being able to do things to 100% of the volume that we had done before. Because it's a whole different world. It's a whole different situation. And and most people, I think a lot of people haven't, maybe not most people, but a lot of people haven't taken the time to see like, okay, well, this is a completely different situation. I need to redefine what success is here.
Yeah.
I need to redefine what health is here, right? Maybe talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, and even where I should spend my time more too, at certain things. And a lot of times, a good for instance is like family. One thing we saw is people hanging out with their families more, and rather than trying so hard to go to the gym just to fit in your arm day, or trying to go just so you get on the treadmill, getting home to where you and your family could go for a walk or just something like that, to where you are getting all those cogs in the wheel, because essentially that's really what's important. Because if not, trust me, I speak from experience, you're going to be running around, it's going to stress you out that much more, and you're going to lose everywhere.
Sure.
Because, even if you get to the gym, if you're still that stressed out and you don't get to support your diet like you need to, it's not going to work anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it kind of falls in, there's a concept I like to talk about a lot, and it's that we can regenerate our energy through rest, and we can regenerate our energy through active renewal. And just because we're moving doesn't mean that we're not recovering.
Sure.
Right? Just because we're going for a walk with our family instead of going to the gym, the session or the class that you had scheduled on that day, right? But you just didn't have it in you, but you went and you took a walk with your family. Like, how much positive energy do you get out of that? Like, how much more does it bring to you? How much space does it give yourself and grace does it give yourself to be able to continue with more consistency down the line? Like, if that's what's important to you, if you value family time, if you value, and maybe if you don't even value, because I just think there's something about being outdoors that naturally recharges your batteries.
Yeah.
Right? Why do we always fall into the place of beating ourselves up over doing something different? And I think we need to really keep an eye towards that. And I think this whole conversation has been based around being nicer to ourselves, one.
Yeah.
Right? Having a positive self-belief, feeding yourself positive information, prioritizing your recovery and your mental health along your road to better workouts, getting stronger, losing more weight, eating more quote unquote clean more consistently, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that all these things give us the ability, the energy, and kind of a superpower to an extent to just accept the journey for what it is and start to love it.
Yeah.
Right? It's a Greek word. Yeah, I think it's a Greek word, Nietzsche, right? Which is just no matter what it is, right? No matter if you wished it or you didn't wish it or what happened in the world, just love it.
Yeah.
Because what else are you going to do? You're probably, the only other option is to either accept and ignore or and
be pissed off all the time.
Exactly. And to dwell over it, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we just love the process? And I think when we can define and not restrict ourselves so much, like this pandemic has forced so many people to feel restricted because we can't go to work, because we can't go out to eat. We look at all the things we can't do.
Yeah.
Right? Just like whenever we're not feeling the most healthy, we think of all the things that we can't do.
Yeah.
Right? And so a little proactivity, is that a word? A little proactivity. Proactiveness, sure. Really goes a long way. So I think I'd like to wrap this episode up, Doc, by I want to always focus on us giving actionable advice.
Yep. Right?
So what are some of the ways that you are mindful in being proactive towards your health, or have learned, because we both had our struggles in our fitness journey, right? What are some of the ways that you've learned to give yourself grace when you don't have the ability to give everything you want to give to it, or when you had planned to do something healthy and you go have a couple beers with the buddies because it's what felt better on that day, right? And I don't think that's bad.
No. So a lot, like, a few things, little even homework that you could even think about doing is, for one, like, for every day, if you are on a health journey right now, which, obviously if you're listening to this, you probably are, every night before you go to bed, sit there and think of, at least one, if not three things that you did for yourself that day. Even if it's a health, something that you did towards your health goal, but something you did for yourself that day. And then, another thing to just understand, and I know you'll laugh at me when I say this, but people do not give two shits about you.
Everybody only cares about themselves.
Yep. Claire, one of our trainers, and I were talking about this the other day, and not that I want to bring this back again to whenever I did my, whenever I was a bodybuilder, but I remember whenever I was in PT class, and we always used to joke that when you're in PT school, you're going to see everyone naked by the end of the year. And whenever I was at that point, I thought, this is going to be amazing. People are going to, I'm going to be ripped. I'm going to be that shredded guy. They're going to use me as the anatomy map because I'm, that's what I'm going to be.
Because you're Adonis.
Yeah, this is a stupid thing that comes in, stupid things that you think about, but I'm not ashamed. Anyhow, but it's funny because, there were a few compliments here and there, but in reality, there was not. People don't care. People don't care about you. They don't care where you're at because they're so damn worried about where they're at themselves, and they're so insecure themselves that if you don't find a way to just appreciate your efforts towards your final happiness, then you're just going to end up spinning your wheels trying to impress people who, again, don't care. Don't care at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
I was, while you were talking, I was just thinking about some of the things that I've adopted over the years, and I kind of cycle through a lot of different things as they feel better. And it's again, I think another something we talked on last episode was this thought that your health is this continual editing process, right? And it's not finite. It's a continual process of achieving and getting better and failing and getting better and all this. And I think that what I prioritize may not be right for everyone, but I do think it's important that everyone get some element of rest. If you're not sleeping well, it's usually a byproduct of a lot of other areas of your health and stress culminating to restricting your ability to sleep. And that's importance number one, because if we can't recharge our batteries, we'll never achieve the things that we're trying to do, and we'll never be motivated. We'll never feel good, right? So, and how you get to the point of not sleeping is, again, like I said, through a bunch of different stressors. And if you're not a meditator, like I meditate 15 minutes a day, probably. Whenever I get here, I pull into my parking spot and I meditate for 15 minutes before I come in. I know that because the form of meditation I do is formulated to clear my mind, because I'm a fast thinker. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of goals. I have a lot of responsibilities. And it clears space for me to be more creative and to be more productive. But it also, meditation is shown to do things like drop blood pressure, right? And it's got all these physical effects whenever you just quiet your mind. And so, maybe you're not into meditation. But like I said, active renewal can be taking the time to go for a walk and just tell yourself...
Without your damn phone.
Without your phone, sure. And just taking notice of all the things around you. Like, we walk among so many freaking miracles in a day that we don't even really see at certain points in our lives, right? Like, it's 75 degrees out in the middle of November. It's sunny. It's beautiful. Right? Yesterday, instead of sitting in the office having meetings all day, I took 3 walks with 3 different people. I got to interact with them. I got to be out in the sun. I got to see the leaves changing, but yet it was still comfortable for me to be outside. My heart's beating, right? Like, there are so many things that we can't explain that we should be thankful for. And whenever we can, I think you cannot feel restricted when you have gratitude.
Yep.
So I think what I'm trying to get at is if you're not a meditator, right? You just, for some reason or another, you can't sit still and do that, right? I think it's, at the very least, is to find things to be grateful for, right? Like you said, things for yourself, or I don't think that it has to be restricted to yourself. I think it can be really anything.
Oh, yeah, it can be anything.
You know, and along that same line, taking some time to do some breathing exercises, right? Because even just working on taking deep breaths increases your lung capacity, increases your aerobic function, right? There's a host of physical benefits that breathing exercises can have. That is another form of meditation to a degree. You know, there's a reason why martial arts are so closely correlated to mindfulness. That's, you know, lifting weights, going for a walk. Repetitive motion is also a form of meditation. Yep. Because
yoga,
repetitive motion that is not hugely stressful. Okay, I think these are all really good things, but I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is write out all the reasons why you should believe in yourself. Right? All the reasons why you can be the person and why you are the person who's going to be successful and the person who's going to be the most consistent, because those are one and the same.
Yep. Agreed.
Nothing else?
Nope. That
all right.
Sounds great on my end. So.
All right, good deal. Well, yeah, that's what we got for you for today. If you liked what we have going on, episode 1 today was very much a piece of what we would consider to explain why we've had success with so many clients, right? Especially success with specifically in the demographic of people who are looking to get stronger and lose weight over the age of 40 or 50, right? I think that these are a host of concepts that parents and grandparents go through a lot, a host of concepts that most people, but I think more often than not, people who are responsible for other people see a lot more often. And that's really what we aim to do is to give you actionable advice and concepts that maybe you hadn't thought about. And we really want to rethink the concept of what health is so that you can redefine it on those days when you don't have 100% to give, yet you have grace, thankfulness, gratitude, and the ability to do something and know that something is enough on that day.
Yep.
So with that said, again, this is Healthy, Fit, and Pain Free Pittsburgh. Ryan Wade here with Dr. Tyler Bordick, and have a wonderful day.
Love you all. Get a picture real quick. The last picture I took, like literally your face was completely covered by.
I was trying to